Hi, Cinema Caps here. Today I will show you a film from 2019 named The Soldier Boy. Spoilers ahead. Keep an eye out, and take care. The film begins on a quiet river bank with Sergei Ershkov climbing a tree, bragging to his mother and brother when he reaches the top. Suddenly, a plane crashes in their direction, and the calm is disturbed. Then Sergei grabbed a slingshot and imagined destroying a pine cone by hitting it with an airplane. It was actually a dream, and Sergei wakes up in the middle of the night when he hears a loud bang on the door. A woman rushed in and relieved him, finding the boy alive. She tries to convince Sergei to come with him and pretend to be his son since his mother and brother were killed along with the partisans. But it was too late, and a large patrol was heading home. The woman forces Sergei to escape through her window. When he escapes, many houses in the village are burned. Sergei gets lost in a dark, foggy forest. When morning came, he went to the river to drink water, and when he had had enough, he heard some people speaking in a strange language. He escaped and hid in a nearby tree, just in time for 3 Nazi soldiers to descend the river. The Germans then make a fire to cook the food. Meanwhile, Sergei spots a snake above his head, but he manages to remain silent until the Nazis leave. Sergei then continues sailing through the forest. It had been many days since I last ate, but when I saw the berries falling to the ground, I ate them without hesitation. The next day, several Russian scouts find him and bring him to the base. Commander Kuznetsov, who is in charge of this side of the front line, comforts Sergei by explaining that they are on the same side. In response, Sergei introduced himself and shook hands with the commander like a much older man. Everyone feels sorry for the injured boy, takes care of him, and gives him food and drink. A doctor named Katya then applied medicine to Sergei's wounds. He winced in pain whenever she rubbed something. So Katya agrees to draw a tank to distract and please him. When the boy started asking questions about the front line, some of the wounded soldiers next to him answered politely. Soon, Kuznetsov goes to a makeshift hospital to find out her husband's condition and talk to Sergei. An innocent child will describe in detail what he is experiencing, after which he will become interested in metal and the commander's pistol. After being given the chance to hold the commander's pistol, he offers up his abdominal armor. Sometime later, while the commander is on his way to the front line, Katya asks the commander for permission to let the child stay. She declares that everyone will take care of him. Moreover, since he has no relatives to return to, he ends up in an orphanage. But the commander refused the request on the grounds that the front line was not the place for children. Some soldiers sometimes visit Sergei in the makeshift hospital. Once, they even brought him binoculars and some apples as gifts. One night, Katya told her sister that she couldn't sleep because she was worried and that she thought she would never see her again if she kicked Sergei out. But she was not alone. Some soldiers felt the same way. They all continue to beg their commander to let the boy stay, as many of them have developed a bond with Sergei, which has boosted their morale. However, the commander insisted that the boy go, and for good reason. War is not a place for children. The next day, the Germans advanced, but the Russians were able to stop them. After a fierce shootout, soldiers are waiting to take the children to an orphanage. Kuznetsov sits down and struggles to get his message across. Sergei finds out what is happening, and he starts crying. Afterwards, the commander handed the child a wooden gun, and Mr. Sergei hugged him tightly in gratitude. The commander could not bear to let go of the child and changed his mind. He then asked Sergei if he wants to be his son. And of course, the child answered yes. That night, the soldiers excitedly planned how to make Sergei's uniform. Meanwhile, Sergei dreams of his pre-war memories. The whole family spends the day in a carriage. In the morning, the commander wakes Sergei up and surprises him with his uniform. Soon after carrying them, Sergei happily ran around the camp. He saw the boy happy, and the soldiers were happy as well. But you can see the plane overhead. German bombing destroys the atmosphere. The Russians intervene to protect Sergei and trap him in a trench. After the bombing, the number of wounded increased. Amidst the chaos, Sergei tries to find his commander and Katya. However, when she is not found, she tries to help her thirsty soldiers by giving them water. While helping out, one of the soldiers asks Sergei to read the letter because he is blind. Sergei is also illiterate and made up a story about the cow. The blind soldier claims he has no cattle, but the other wounded soldier silently laughs it off. Eventually, other wounded soldiers also read the letters to the little child. Kuznetsov then sees Sergei sleeping on Katya's lap. The commander clearly likes the beautiful nurse and tries to confess, but is at a loss for words. Sergei then wakes up, prompting the commander to cancel his confession mission for another day. On the same day, Sergei pretends to shave his beard. 2 soldiers approach him and ask if he's on a date. But Sergei just replied that soldiers don't date. The next day, Sergei asks his commander, his father, if he has anything to do. Kuznetsov orders him to deliver the letter to the front. Without hesitation, the boy took the letter and handed it to the soldiers, and the tension eased. Later, while playing with his binoculars, he discovered a suspicious foot in the hay. And he runs and reports to the soldiers that he was eating. At first, the soldiers didn't believe him but decided to find out anyway. Sergei goes ahead and indicates where the enemy is. It turns out he was right. 2 crowds were hiding by the hay. The Germans try to counterattack, but the Russians overwhelmed them. During the confrontation, Sergei discovers a radio. Kuznetsov later learned of Sergei's performance through his right-hand man. The coach was even more surprised when Sergei didn't say anything about the child. When the child enters the room, Kuznetsov excitedly shows Sergei the sealed adoption papers, making the commandant the rightful father. And he insists on telling Katya the good news. Sergei drags his father into the woods and riverbanks. However, when they arrived, Katya was talking to another man with flowers. This led Kuznetsov to mistakenly think that she was infatuated with another man when, in fact, the man with Katya was courting her, but she refused. Sergei runs to Katya to save her from an awkward moment with a man and tells her that this is near. A short while later, another shootout broke out. Sergei unnecessarily tries to get involved in the front line by shooting bullets. The old soldier tries to persuade Sergei to run away to safety, but the boy is quite stubborn. So the old man gives orders instead. And like a real soldier, Sergei obeys orders and goes to safety. When Sergei arrives at his commander's dugout, he finds he is having trouble communicating with headquarters. One of the soldiers tells the commander that the phone line may be broken. Sergei hears this and follows the line to the wounded soldier. Sergei, knowing the danger, crawled over to the man and asked how to connect the cable. The soldier then tutors the young child before he dies. After successfully connecting the lines, Kuznetsov arrived at his headquarters and requested reinforcements. Later that night, an elderly soldier tells Sergei about the constellations in the night sky. Somehow, it leads to a conversation about love. When a naive child asks what love is like, the old man explains that it is like being separated from someone you love and getting sick. The next day, Sergei rushes to Katya in a makeshift hospital. He told her that her commander was so ill that she could barely sleep. Katya immediately runs to her commander and asks for her help. In the meantime, Sergei escapes. Katya wakes Kuznetsov up and asks how he is doing. Kuznetsov picks himself up and says he's fine, realizing that Sergei's little trick was to bring them together. When Katya hears that the commander is safe, she leaves in a hurry, but Kuznetsov chases after her. Now Sergei is walking through the wooden fortress with a branch in his hand. He then looked at the camp through binoculars and found a dog. He then runs over to pet her. After greeting the dog trainer, he asks if we can go sledding. The responsible person gives the boy a chance. Eventually, the dogs meet the cat and start chasing it. One of the soldiers spotted Sergei heading for the minefield and followed him on a tricycle. Luckily, the soldier arrived just in time, blocked his way, and held Sergei tight. At the same time, the commander catches up with Katya. He then tries to confess, but no words come out. But Katya knew what he meant, and before she could answer, a soldier interrupted the moment with a letter from above. After reading the letter, Kuznetsov tells Katya that he will leave the next day and, as ordered, march with the entire regiment to the next mission. Arriving in the village before long, Commander and Sergei are invited to a house. Sergei notices a strange picture frame on the floor. One man casually remarks that he was just fixing it because it was a misfire in a German airstrike. When the police hear this, they order everyone to evacuate the house to defuse the bomb. While the men were at work, Sergei was petting a puppy with local children. The soldiers managed to carry the bomb out of the house and continue their march towards the target. On the way, the car in which Kuznetsov and Sergei were riding struck a landmine, killing Kuznetsov's right hand instantly. Fortunately, Sergei and his commander escaped with minor injuries. They will soon reach their destination. Kuznetsov meets with the general and reports. Sergei enters the room, and after a short conversation, the general is captivated by the boy's intelligence and military-like demeanor. The next day, the Kuznetsov regiment is given the honor of raising the SS flag, and the general badges Sergei's uniform. The whole troop smiles at the marching boy. Shortly after, the Russians were attacked, artillery fire hit the trenches, and the commander was buried. Sergei runs to the others and informs them of Kuznetsov's situation. Soldiers then head to the scene to rescue their commander from the rubble. Kuznetsov survived the encounter. The film ends with the regiment marching towards an unknown destination. According to one story, the division became Sergei's family, fought in every battle, took part in the Battle of Stalingrad, and even reached Poland. His legend as the youngest soldier lives on. Thank you very much for watching this video. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more movie recap videos.